On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Joan Crawford, a towering figure of Hollywood's golden age, passed away from a heart attack on May 10, 1977, in her New York City apartment. She was 73. Her death marked more than just the end of a life. It symbolized the closing chapter of an era when stars were meticulously crafted by the studio system, their images polished to near perfection. Crawford, a woman who had climbed from humble beginnings to Oscar-winning stardom, had become emblematic of the ambition, reinvention, and rigid control that defined both the industry and the American dream during the 20th century. Her death from natural causes came after years of reclusion, as Crawford had retreated from public life following her final on-screen appearance in the early 1970s. In a culture increasingly embracing realism and vulnerability, Crawford's brand of steely glamour began to feel like a relic of a bygone age. Yet even in absence, her legend endured, only to be reinterpreted dramatically 1 year after her death with the release of Mommy Dearest, a controversial memoir by her adopted daughter Christina. The book alleged emotional and physical abuse, contradicting the image of Crawford as a resilient but dignified screen icon. This posthumous shift in public perception reflects a broader societal transition: the growing appetite for transparency, the questioning of power structures, and the re-evaluation of celebrity personas. Joan Crawford had built her career on control over her performances, her image, and even her personal narrative. In death, however, she became a symbol of how fragile such control truly is, especially in a world where private truths eventually emerge. The consequences of Crawford's passing were not immediate policy shifts or global mourning, but rather a cultural reckoning. Her life and work continue to be dissected in film retrospectives, feminist critiques, and pop culture references. She remains a fixture in discussions about the cost of fame and the complexities of female power in a male-dominated industry. Joan Crawford's enduring legacy lies in her contradiction, a woman who inspired admiration and provoked criticism, often simultaneously. Through her roles, her disciplined persona, and even the controversies surrounding her, she is immortalized not just in film, but in the evolving dialogue about memory, myth, and the human desire to both celebrate and scrutinize greatness. Wayne Gacy, one of America's most infamous serial killers, was executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994, at the Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. His death, though carried out by the state through naturalized legal means, was the violent culmination of a life defined by hidden brutality and deep societal disturbance. Gacy, often dubbed the Killer Clown for his performances at children's parties, was convicted of murdering 33 young men and boys during the 1970s, burying many of them beneath his home. Gacy's execution reflected a societal moment of reckoning with both the nature of evil and the limits of the justice system. By the time he was put to death, the American public had spent years trying to understand how a seemingly normal man could conceal such monstrous behavior. His crimes shattered illusions about safety in suburbia and the idea that predators were easily identifiable. Gacy had been a community volunteer, a business owner, and a political activist. His execution was not only a legal act of retribution, but also a societal attempt to close a deeply disturbing chapter. The immediate consequences of his death were not celebratory, but complex. While many families of the victims found a sense of closure, Gacy's case reignited debates about the death penalty, especially concerning how long he remained on death row, 14 years, despite overwhelming evidence. His last words, chillingly indifferent, "Kiss my ass," further cemented his legacy as unrepentant and remorseless, highlighting the challenges of applying moral resolution to profoundly immoral acts. Gacy's legacy has evolved less as a historical figure and more as a symbol in America's cultural landscape, appearing in documentaries, films, books, and true crime media. This reflects a broader fascination with the dark edges of human behavior and the societal need to process such horror through storytelling. Yet, unlike heroic or tragic deaths, Gacy's execution is a reminder of mortality, not as a transition to reverence, but as a closing argument in the case against unchecked power and deception. In remembering Gacy, society grapples with the boundaries of evil, justice, and how memory can either sanctify or condemn. His story is immortalized not through celebration, but as a cautionary tale, one that continues to provoke discomfort, reflection, and a demand for vigilance. Blanchard, a captivating actress known for her roles in 1950s adventure films and westerns, died of cancer on May 10, 1970, at the age of 47. Her passing was the quiet conclusion to a career that, while never reaching Hollywood's top tier, nevertheless left an indelible mark on the golden age of American film. Blanchard's death from natural causes, after a prolonged battle with cancer, mirrored the era's limited medical advances in treating aggressive diseases, especially for women whose careers were often shaped by youth and physical allure. Blanchard's career reflected the challenges faced by actresses in mid-20th century Hollywood, where typecasting and short-lived fame were common. Her glamorous image often relegated her to roles as the seductive femme fatale, as seen in films like Abbott and Costello Go to Mars and Destry. Off-screen, her life demonstrated resilience, pursuing a law degree before entering show business and later fighting illness with dignity. The era in which she lived prized outer beauty but gave little voice to the inner struggles of its female stars. Her death, then, underscored the personal cost of a system that both celebrated and consumed its stars. The immediate consequences of Blanchard's passing were not publicly monumental. Unlike contemporaries who became icons of tragedy, her death did not generate national mourning or radically shift the trajectory of cinema. However, it contributed to the growing recognition of the impermanence of Hollywood fame and the need to preserve the legacies of performers who might otherwise fade from public memory. In many ways, her death symbolized the quiet disappearance of the classic Hollywood era, as the studio system gave way to the countercultural wave of the 1970s. In reflecting on Blanchard's death, we are reminded of the human desire to be remembered beyond the screen, beyond the roles played. We immortalize figures like her not necessarily through statues or state funerals, but through the preservation of film, retrospectives, and the ongoing conversation about women in Hollywood. Memory, in her case, becomes a quiet tribute, a recognition of beauty, talent, and struggle in an industry often defined by spectacle. Blanchard may not have died a queen or a martyr, but her life and death quietly echo the themes of mortality, power, and remembrance, compelling us to look closer at those history might overlook. Deborah Walley, a vibrant presence in American film and television during the 1960s, died of esophageal cancer on May 10, 2001, at the age of 57. Her death was quiet and natural, a stark contrast to the lively beach party roles that had defined her on-screen persona. Best known for her portrayal of Gidget in Gidget Goes Hawaiian and her work alongside Frankie Avalon in several musical comedies, Walley became a symbol of youthful optimism during a period of cultural transformation in post-war America. Her passing reflected the fading light of an era that celebrated innocence, surf culture, and the escapist charms of pop cinema. By the time of her death, the genre she had helped popularize had long given way to more complex and gritty depictions of youth and society. Wally's struggle with cancer and her decision to work in educational theater and support children's arts programs in her later years spoke to a shift in values from celebrity toward community service, revealing a deeper side to a woman once typecast as a carefree ingenue. The immediate public response to her death was subdued, lacking the grand tributes often afforded to Hollywood legends. Yet for those who had grown up watching her, particularly in the early 1960s, her death signaled the closing of a nostalgic chapter. The decline of the lighthearted beach movie paralleled a national mood that was turning toward protest, realism, and change. In that sense, Wally's departure was emblematic of a broader cultural transition. While her name might not command the enduring fame of some of her contemporaries, Wally's death did quietly amplify her legacy as a representative of a more innocent, carefree time. She is remembered in fan retrospectives, nostalgic broadcasts, and articles reflecting on the golden age of teen cinema. Her work continues to evoke a sense of escapism and joy, a reminder of Hollywood's power to shape cultural memory. Deborah Wally's passing, like her life, was modest yet meaningful. It highlights how even those whose fame is ephemeral can leave a lasting imprint. We immortalize such figures not only through their films, but through the memories they evoke, the eras they define, and the cultural touchstones they help create. Her story reminds us that legacy is not always measured in headlines, but in the quieter influence of charm, character, and compassion. Tony Armatrading, a British actor known for his compelling stage and screen performances, died of cancer on May 10, 2021, at the age of 59. His death was the result of a private battle with the disease and was announced quietly, reflecting a life lived largely out of the celebrity spotlight, yet marked by a deep commitment to craft and storytelling. Armatrading's passing underscores the quiet dignity with which many artists continue to shape culture behind the scenes, away from the public adoration that defines more commercially visible careers. Born in Birmingham, England, Armatrading built a diverse body of work in television, film, and especially theater. He was one of the few black British actors of his generation to make a significant mark in both the Royal Shakespeare Company and in Hollywood productions like The Saint and Notting Hill. His death came at a time when the entertainment industry was increasingly reckoning with the need for more inclusive representation, making his loss both a reminder of how far things had come and how much further there was to go. The immediate impact of his passing was felt most strongly within the creative community, where tributes from colleagues and friends emphasized his generosity, talent, and professionalism. Though not a household name, Armatrading embodied a class of working actors whose contributions are vital to the success of major productions. His death served as a moment of reflection on the often unheralded but essential roles that such individuals play in shaping artistic legacy. Armatrading's legacy, while perhaps understated in the public eye, lives on in the performances he delivered and the paths he helped open for future generations of Black British actors. His passing didn't shift the trajectory of history in a dramatic or headline-making fashion, but it did quietly reinforce the importance of perseverance, integrity, and representation in the arts. In remembering figures like Tony Armatrading, we confront our human tendency to focus on grand narratives while overlooking quieter contributions that shape culture in meaningful ways. His legacy is preserved through the memories of his performances, the roles he brought to life, and the inspiration he offered to aspiring actors navigating the complexities of identity and opportunity. Through this, we recognize that mortality may end a life, but it cannot silence the echoes of authentic expression. Norman Lloyd, a centenarian actor, director, and producer whose career spanned nearly a century, passed away from natural causes on May 10, 2021, at the age of 106. His death marked the end of an extraordinary era in entertainment history, one that witnessed the transformation of cinema from the silent age to the digital age. Lloyd's passing, though quiet and dignified, reminded the world of a bygone generation of artists who built the foundations of modern film and television. Born in 1914, Lloyd began his career in the 1930s, working with such titans as Orson Welles and Alfred Hitchcock. His role in Hitchcock's Saboteur marked the beginning of a lifelong collaboration and cemented his reputation as a versatile performer. He later became a producer and director, working on influential television series like Alfred Hitchcock Presents and Saint Elsewhere, where he was introduced to a new generation as Dr. Auslander. His longevity and adaptability symbolized the persistence and evolution of American entertainment throughout the 20th century. Lloyd's death did not come with the tragic spectacle of martyrdom or violent end, but rather with a reverence reserved for figures whose contributions stretch quietly yet deeply into the cultural fabric. In an era obsessed with instant fame and youth, Lloyd represented endurance, wisdom, and a long-form dedication to the arts. His passing reflected not only the inevitable end of a personal journey, but also the closing of a chapter in Hollywood history, one shaped by craft, integrity, and collaboration over celebrity. The immediate consequences of his death were subtle, yet meaningful. Tributes from fellow actors, historians, and filmmakers highlighted his mentoring spirit, commitment to storytelling, and rare perspective as a living link to the golden age of cinema. While his death may not have altered the trajectory of history, it reaffirmed the timeless value of artistic legacy, preserved not just in awards or headlines, but in the lasting quality of work and relationships built across generations. Norman Lloyd is immortalized not through myth, but through an enduring body of work and the stories of those he influenced. His life and death offer a reminder that the measure of greatness often lies not in the spectacle of one's passing, but in the quiet resilience of a life well lived, echoed in every frame, stage, and memory left behind. Geoffrey Balden, a distinguished British actor best known for his roles in Catweasel and Doctor Who, passed away from natural causes on May 10, 2017, at the age of 93. His death marked the quiet close of a career that spanned more than 6 decades and reflected a generation of performers who prized craft and character over celebrity. Though not a household name in the modern sense, Balden left a profound mark on British television and theatre, embodying a uniquely mid-20th century dedication to storytelling and performance. Balden's passing came at a time when traditional British television was being reshaped by streaming services and fast-paced media cycles. His death symbolized the fading of an era where actors often honed their talents on stage before achieving screen success. As Catweasel, the time-traveling 11th century wizard brought into modern-day Britain, Balden created a whimsical and deeply human character who connected with audiences young and old. His performances offered an escape from the growing anxieties of post-war Britain, a period marked by social change and the questioning of authority and tradition. The immediate consequences of his death were tributes from fans and fellow performers who appreciated his unique contributions. While Balden's death did not create political shockwaves or historical turning points, it nonetheless prompted a nostalgic reflection on the values he represented: humility, imagination, and a deep respect for the craft of acting. His legacy was further amplified by his early association with Doctor Who, a series that has since become a cultural institution. Interestingly, he had turned down the title role in 1963, a decision that added to the mythos of what might have been and revealed the uncertainties faced by actors in a rapidly evolving industry. Balden's death invites broader reflection on mortality and memory. Unlike rulers or revolutionaries whose deaths often rewrite history, Balden represents the countless artists whose impact is quieter, but no less significant. We immortalize figures like him not in monuments, but in the way their performances linger in our imaginations, in reruns, and in the generations of actors they inspire. In remembering Geoffrey Balden, we are reminded that legacy isn't always loud. Sometimes it's found in a smile at a cherished character or a line remembered from childhood, proof that art, when made with sincerity, transcends time. Rolf Harris, once a celebrated entertainer and artist, died of natural causes on May 10, 2023, at the age of 93. His death occurred in quiet contrast to the storm of controversy that engulfed his later years. Once a beloved household name in the UK and Australia, famed for his television work, musical performances, and children's entertainment, Harris's fall from grace was swift and irreversible following his 2014 conviction for indecent assault. The nature of his passing, natural and uneventful, stood in stark opposition to the tumultuous final chapter of his life, which mirrored a broader societal reckoning with abuse, celebrity power, and institutional failure. Harris's downfall came during the height of the post-Jimmy Savile investigations in the UK, part of Operation U-Tree, which sought to expose historic sexual abuse by public figures. His conviction served as a pivotal moment, shattering the image of untouchable celebrity and signaling a cultural shift toward accountability. His death brought renewed reflection, not so much on his achievements, but on the legacy of harm and the necessity of justice, even delayed. While some mourned the performer they had once admired, others viewed his death as a closing of a painful chapter in the fight against abuse and silence. The immediate consequences of Harris's passing were muted. Tributes were sparse and often tempered with qualifiers, acknowledging his talents while not excusing his actions. There was no grand public mourning, no widespread commemorations. His legacy, once seemingly assured, had been irrevocably tarnished. Unlike artists who die at the height of fame, Harris's end came in seclusion, reflecting a life estranged from the public he once entertained. His story underscores a fundamental truth about mortality and memory, that legacy is not only shaped by achievement, but also by character. In Harris's case, the art and performances that once delighted millions are now reframed through the lens of betrayal and criminality. History is not always kind, nor should it be, especially when weighed against the suffering of victims. We immortalize public figures through culture, but we also revise those memorials when the truth emerges. Statues can fall, and names can be removed from halls of fame. Rolf Harris's death reminds us that the measure of a life extends beyond talent to how one wields influence, and that memory, though powerful, is not immune to reckoning.